Good morning.
Morning.
How's everybody doing this rainy Tuesday?
Good.
Good.
I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah. Foggy your way?
No, not foggy, not raining. Finally.
Really? It's foggy and raining here, which that's okay. I'll take all the rain we can get. It's a muddy mess. Mud up to your eyeballs. And the temperature sure dropped a lot, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
So
So, Amanda, did you connect there? Shot? No, never mind. Rock left. Um,
Jasmine's connected.
yeah, Jasmine's there. Aaron's not there with her. Okay.
No.
And
And
Keith's not here yet, so.
no,
But,
hopefully Keith will show up and Aaron. I'm sure Jasmine gets tired of being in the hot seat.
uh,
Supposed
Ja-
they're calling for snow down my way this later this week, first of next week.
really? Oops.
Yeah,
Uh, which Keith just pulled up. Jasmine, do you have a microphone turned on in there? And are they working in the auto shop across the hall?
Yes. Sorry about.
Yeah. No, no problem. I'm just,
and Aaron showed up. Thanks for
uh,
making it.
yeah.
Good morning, how y'all?
Good, and yourself?
All pretty good. Feeling a lot
How's
better
work?
than last week.
Well, that's good. Were you sick last week or just covered up with everything?
Yeah, I was sick last week.
How's work going?
Not too bad. I had a meeting in Charlottesville to go to last week, so that was interesting.
Well, I hope it was.
Yeah, it wasn't too
Sometimes
bad.
those meetings, you're sitting there like, what's the point?
Yeah, it was very informative, but they with the new VFD laws regulating the
Yeah.
the feed, that's what we had to do it on.
Okay, tell us more about that because that's pertains to ag. So what are y'all
So
still
what they're
have in your
pretty
store and just have to have the
Yeah,
vet
we
prescription
still have
for
it
it?
in the store. You just have to get your prescription from the local vet or whoever you deal with. There can only be a certain amount of aeromycin fed to cattle or any kind of animal.
So there's not going to be any more of the or you can't it's the medicated mineral for pink eye. You just can't
If
give
any
that to them all summer long. You can just do it
well
just for
anything that you feed
wintertime.
anything that they eat that has aeromycin in it, any kind of like 4G crumbles or the mineral, you have to have a
Or
prescription
the
before
chlor
you can.
or the tetracyclines, right?
Yeah,
Like in
yeah,
that
yeah. That's
mineral.
right. Yeah.
Now, ionophores aren't included in that, correct?
Which one is that?
Ionophores like Rumensin and Bovatec.
Oh no, they're not included in it.
I didn't think they were. I mean, it's a growth promoting, and it's also they're also a coccidiostat to prevent
Yes, sir.
coccidiosis. And then your coccidiostats, they're not included in that either, are they?
I don't believe so.
Since it's not a treatment, it's just a preventive type deal, or using antibiotics as a growth promoting type situation. Well, I bet you that was an interesting meeting. So, the I know that will be a different that y'all will handle that a lot differently than this company that I went to work for last semester. I took a job and I lasted about 3 days and I quit. They were pretty unethical. And one of the things, with this directive coming out about feeding with the medicated feeds, they had a veterinarian out in somewhere in the Midwest, and if you wanted, and their idea was if you wanted a medicated feed, he would just write you a prescription for it, so they could sell you their medicated feed or medicated mineral. And to me, that's not the intent of that law. I think, you know, I know medicated feed, antibiotics and feed for cattle. For years, it's also been, it's good for a prophylactic treatment. So you get in a bunch of calves, you're a stocker operator and you're getting in a bunch of calves and you feed them that feed for the first month to help, if anything's kind of a little snotty nosed or something, and then you treat your sick ones. But you kind of use it to nip it in the bud, as Barney Fife says. You know what I mean? At least, for a couple of weeks to a month. And the antibiotic is also used as a growth promotant. And I never did really care for the idea of using antibiotics as a growth promotant. I always just used them more as a treatment, a prophylactic treatment, or getting in those stressed calves and feeding it that way to help nip it in the bud for any bacterial infections. But it had been used. It's been used in the industry as a growth promotant for several years. And I think that can cause some issues on your farm. I mean, there's no scientific evidence anywhere out there that says there's antibiotic resistance from animals that causes antibiotic or, resistance in people. That hasn't ever happened. But, if a farm uses a certain type of antibiotic all the time, their animals or that bacteria, if it's used improperly or over a period of time, they can develop a resistance to it. So it's always a good idea always, whenever did antibiotics, I followed the label because I don't want any antibiotic resistance. And I would switch my antibiotics around to try to prevent that. Now we're seeing this resistance with anthelmintics, with the parasites. We're seeing that in sheep, horses, and cattle, with the parasites getting resistant to the anthelmintics that we use. So it's causing some issues there. But I've got mixed feelings about that medicated feed directive. I hate that they did that from the standpoint it's an inconvenience to the producer, and it's an additional cost because you have to have your vet involved to write the prescription. But at the same time, for some of these people that just fed it all the time, they probably didn't need to feed it all the time. I can understand feeding the medicated mineral in the summertime for pink eye, but, I think you cause more problems in the long run with that low-grade antibiotic in those animal systems and developing resistance than what you could get, the benefit from it. But that's just my opinion.
Let me take it to the extreme, the regulation. That also applies to bees. And I can't buy tetracycline. I can't buy tetracycline. I have to go to my veterinarian to get a prescription, and she cannot write a prescription, and she'll violate her oath of office or whatever until she examines any animal to see if they need antibiotics. So
that's exactly right.
She has to come and look at my bees. She knows nothing about bees, and it's nothing that is in the end proofs. It's mainly to control potential prophylactics for diseases in the hive. So
that's right. And you know, and we used to be able to go to the vet and buy whatever antibiotics we needed. And now I think that's going to come to an end.
And,
Uh,
and my vet won't write the prescription.
right, you know, and you take a cattle farmer and, when they're always buying drugs, um, that vet's supposed to come out to your farm and do that prescription. So that's going
And
to
if
get very costly.
and then if you read the small print, if I use what I have, I'm in violation of federal code, this and that, and I'd be arrested for a felon for administrating drugs without a supervision of a veterinarian.
Yeah. It's I think it's a government overreach in some ways of it. I think the majority of the farmers and animal producers out there act in good faith and do the best thing. I'm sure, there's just a few people that probably abuse it. But, you know, I don't know if they're doing it for consumer confidence, where these people are hollering, well, cattle are treated with antibiotics and that can get in their food system. You know, that really aggravates me because the withdrawal period on these antibiotics are strictly adhered to, and that meat's tested, and they do come back to those producers if it comes up contaminated. So, the checks are in place already. I don't understand. It aggravates me from several ends of it. I see the reasoning why they did that, but I still don't agree with it.
Well, maybe our president will change that.
I hope so. Like I said, I got mixed feelings about it. I don't like it, but I guess for the bad eggs out there, I'm glad they, you know, I wish, yeah, I guess it's away from, the people, the bad egg people, you know what I mean? But that's the only people, that's the only one, that's the only good thing I see about it, and nothing else I see good about it. But that's just me. But I don't like it. It makes it tough for every animal producer out there. I used to go before the start of calving season. I'd go every year, run over to the vet, buy me a bottle of lidocaine, oxytocin, so that suture material. So I could handle some stuff. If I had a hard calving situation, I could give that cow an epidural so she'd quit pushing, get the vet out there to do a C-section. Or if I had a prolapse, we could give her an epidural and, get that thing back in and sew her up. If she wasn't producing milk, I'd give her a shot of oxytocin for that milk letdown effect. And we always had antibiotics for whatever we needed, sulfur drugs, uterine boluses, and antibiotics for those scouring calves and so on. So it's frustrating. It makes life difficult, and it's going to be a great expense to those farmers, to all farmers. And like you said, maybe Trump will change that. I don't know. I hope he does, if he can. I don't know if he can or not. Maybe the Secretary of Ag, he's a farmer. He understands farming. Maybe he can do something about it. But I think that's it. Is that USDA ruling or FDA? I don't remember which. You remember, Aaron? Is that FDA? Came down with that ruling or USDA?
What was that again, sir?
That feed directive, is that FDA or USDA?
Yeah, it's the government, I think. I can't remember
Well, I know
which.
it's the government. I'm trying to figure out which division.
I think it's FDA though.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
I'm not 100% positive, but I think it's FDA.
All right. Well, let's get started, guys. I got some of your job descriptions in. I've got them, those that were submitted, I got them graded and sent emails back to you regarding that. Got your grade on Blackboard so you can look at it. So if you want to make your changes, you can make changes and send them back to me. I did put that off a week, so it will be due, I think, this week, right? Or I put it off a week because we didn't have school that first week. So get that into me, and for you guys that's got it done, you can start working on the second assignment, which is your the advertising for it. Now on this advertising deal, it's a couple things I want to mention here. Make sure you include the specific geographic area for your job search, the counties or states, or national job search, or your, or just the town you live in. How big is your job search for this position? Where are you going to advertise it? With Virginia Employment Commission, trade journals, radio stations, newspapers, internet, your web page, jobs.com, or indeed.com or something. Be specific where you're going to place your advertisement. And then you are going to have a brief paragraph or a brief description. You are going to write a advertisement for this job position. And remember, you want it brief about what it is, and make sure you have your contact information so that people can contact you to get a job description. You don't want to use your job description for this advertisement because if you advertise in a newspaper, they're going to charge you per word, or a periodical, they're going to charge you per word. So, you want it to be brief. You want to tell them what, just kind of like that summary of your job description. You're going to have something similar to that, and you're going to have your contact information and you're going to tell them what the next step is for application, or, to apply, like, please call. And I'm wondering if you really should have people, put your phone number there because, you're working, you're busy. Do you want to be answering the phone all day with prospective employees? You may want them to email you a resume, and then go from there, or mail or email you a resume, or come by your place of work for a job application. However you decide to do that, make sure it's included in that job advertisement. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay. Aaron and Keith, any questions regarding that?
No, sir. I think we're good.
You can see it. You can see the point distribution on that one. Again, that's on Blackboard. Just pull that out, and you can grade it yourself before you send it in to me. Make sure you have everything in there that I'm looking for. So, should be an easy 22 points. Just make sure each and every one of those things are addressed, just like in the job description.
What's the due date for that one? Isn't it the 2nd?
Let me look on the syllabus.
I'm not sure. I couldn't remember if we changed it or or it
No,
talked
we
about
didn't
something different
change
or
the
not?
second when we changed the first
Okay.
one. Uh, let me pull it up here. I know we put the first one off for 1 week, just because we didn't have class that first week. Uh, so,
I guess I'm confused. I know the job description, but a job announcement, is that just posting of your job description?
yes, that's your
Okay.
advertising for that job.
Okay.
And
And
that's
what-
how come I put on that note that you turned in, I would change, you know,
Okay.
you had job announcement on yours, and I said, name this
Okay.
job description.
So make that change and just resubmit it for the job announcement part?
Well, I wouldn't turn in that job description for a job announcement.
No, the job
That's what
announcement
I was
would want to
saying.
be, hey, we've got this job. Check out the description for more details, kind of.
Okay. It's just like the print-offs you had from the newspaper articles and magazines that are online. Okay, I got you.
You're going to write an advertisement announcing that
Okay.
this job is available.
Okay, I got you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, free beer
so-
tomorrow.
So, you know, you want it brief because if it's in a periodical, you're going to be paying per word.
Yeah, okay, I got you. Okay.
Okay. All right, guys. Any other questions or concerns before we get started here?
Well, I'd just like to bring to you an article that appeared in this week's Lancaster Farming. You know, we were talking about job safety and OSHA and stuff the other day, and there's an article in here that really doesn't make sense to me. Basically, it's that in Charleston, West Virginia, it's a beef jerky making plant, and a coworker, I guess they're using the bandsaw, he cut his thumb off. The coworker calls 911 for medical emergency. The owner of the plant fires the coworker for calling 911 because he did not follow established company policy. And the company policy, from what I understand, is to call internally to their own site medical clinic or whatever and have them take care of the emergencies. So a lawsuit prevailed, and OSHA came in and basically said that the coworker had the right to call 911 and the person couldn't be fired and they had to restate wages. And my question is this: when does written policy precede common sense or emergency issues?
That's a good question. I mean, coworker cut off his thumb. First thing I would do is call 911.
Well, that wasn't a policy. You're supposed to call the medical clinic on site.
Yeah. You know, I'd call 911 and I'd call the medical clinic because he's going to go to the hospital, period.
Right.
You know, I'd get the medical clinic there and do everything they can to stop the bleeding and hopefully find the thumb, put it on the ice so they can reattach it. But, you know, that's a good question. You know, when I was at Tech, I had an ag law class, and one of the things that the professor said was that the laws are based on what reasonable people would do in a situation. And to me, that's reasonable, you know. So, you know, I think in a medical emergency, I think that would trump written policy. You know what I mean?
You had Dr. Geyer, didn't you?
I had Dr. Geyer.
Yeah, ordinary, reasonable, and prudent person. It's a wonder I didn't tattoo that on my arm somewhere.
I guess.
You is or you ain't. Remember that?
Oh, yes.
You is or
Well,
you ain't. You're pregnant or you're not. There's no in-betweens. You is or you ain't.
Well, I guess the question I'm asking, and what my takeoff from this, and I did sleep at a Holiday Inn last night. So when do company policies or procedures triumph your individual rights? Do you give them up when you come to work?
I'm trying to think how to answer that. You know, when we take a job, we represent that company. You know, yes, we still have individual rights, but we represent our employee. Let's take a look at Kaepernick, okay, the quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. He exercised his personal rights to kneel during the singing of the national anthem. Take a look at the Dallas Cowboys, and Jerry Jones went in there and said, listen, guys, you represent me. You represent this organization, and if you kneel in the national anthem, I'm going to fire you. Period. So throughout the football season, Kaepernick continued to kneel. The Dallas Cowboys all stood. Now, does he have that freedom of expression, Kaepernick? Yes, he does. Our soldiers have fought and died to protect our freedom of speech. I do not agree with what he did in no shape or form, but he did have that personal right to do so. But where he was representing the organization, it sure gave that organization a bad eye. You know, he could have done something on his own time or after he left that organization. A lot of jobs, especially with the state. When I was a county extension agent, I had to agree not to run for any political office or be politically involved some way or somehow, because I was supposed to, I'm there. You're considered a leader of the county. You're there for educational purposes to the farmers and homeowners, and you did not want to show favoritism for one political party or a co-op compared to another one. Like I couldn't tell people to go to southern states to go buy something because there were other farm supply stores there. I couldn't send them to one supply store and not the other. Does that make sense?
Well, I guess the way I'm looking at this,
I know I'm not answering your question.
Well, I'll just take it a step further, and I'm not trying to belabor the point, but I'm just trying to clear some of mine. As an employer, it looks like you would want to have your work environment regulations and other codes of conduct vetted by a lawyer, because you would hate to have some policy where it said, and what I'm inferring from this, that in medical emergency you have to call the plant clinic. Well, how long that takes, this and that. Suppose a person had, another example, had a heart attack, and while you're waiting for that person to come from the clinic or from the plant, instead of calling 911, that person might die, where if they expeditiously called 911 to start with, that person might have lived. So that's the question. So it looks like that company could have been held liable because their employee coworkers were following the manual and caused the coworker to die because they did not call 911. You understand what I'm trying to say?
I don't disagree with you one bit. I think that's a stupid policy and part of the company.
Yeah, okay.
Which ultimately what you should do is setting a company policy for any of even the dress code and stuff like what Dwayne was talking about. It needs, any policies you said need to be related with doing the job or, that kind of thing. And the whole reasonable, ordinary, prudent person, the company could say to the employee, well, you're not a medical expert to make that diagnosis that this person's going to die, so you got to call 911 because that 1 minute may make a difference. But the flip side is you're protected from that because you are not a medical person. The company is going to assume all the liability. And so going back to Dwayne's point is that's kind of a stupid policy for the company to have. Why the company is saying any injury has to go through the doctor before the staff clinic before it goes to the hospital. What they're trying to do, it wasn't about, they were trying to, because somebody gets a paper cut or something like that, and then they, knock off of work, and they're trying to reduce their expenses. And that's what they're trying to do, is to keep people from unnecessarily filing a workers' comp claim, going to the doctor, that kind of stuff. It's like, oh, if we can stick a Band-Aid on you and stick you back to work. That's probably why they said that policy, and it wasn't for somebody cut their thumb off. It wasn't for somebody having a heart attack. But the way that policy was written, it's an all or none, and we kind of have to enforce it, or the rule is meaningless, and it's just ultimately a poorly written policy on a part of the company. They should say, any reasonably non-life-threatening injuries need to go through the clinic before calling 911. They need to, tweak the wording on that kind of thing. But the company needs to think, which is worse? We get sued, like we're getting sued, or we get sued by the family of the guy that has a heart attack and dies because the ambulance was late getting there, versus how much extra money are we spending having somebody miss an hour worth of work going to the hospital just because of a paper cut. And you need to make that choice before you make that policy. And they made the economic choice of saving a little bit of money, and they've opened themselves up to this lawsuit that they're going to get.
Okay, I didn't think about that. Mr. Scales, I think, needs to get a new job as HR director.
I don't know about all that.
Yeah, I mean, the way Tom, I'm right on spot with Tom, the way he was talking, and how he explained it to you. But, it was a poorly written deal. Where my dad used to work at that factory, they made coal mining equipment. They had a nurse on hand, just, in a similar type deal. You get cut, get burned, whatever, you run to that nurse and get taken care of without having to go to the doctor. But, I don't know of any major medical emergencies that might have happened. I mean, I wasn't there, but I'm sure that, I know, knowing how my dad is and the men that he worked for, that wouldn't have been an issue. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand it. Mr. Scales put a different light to it. I didn't think about that component.
Yeah. So, going back to Dr. Leon Geyer, or Tom and I's former professor in ag law, you want to protect yourself, always seek counsel. Don't be afraid to call a lawyer to get him to check out your policies, because the last thing you want to do is go to court. You do not want anything to go in front of a jury, because surprises can happen. And the only time you like a surprise in life is Christmas morning, and it's wrapped up underneath that Christmas tree. Any other surprises you do not like. Correct, Tom?
Oh, I shouted an amen, brother, but my mic was off.
So, Dr. Geyer says, I'm a lawyer, but heck, I still go to a lawyer all the time for advice. And I've got a PhD. I know when I need to go. It makes me dangerous, so I go. But, it's not going to hurt, because you don't, and that's one of the things, as we get throughout the semester, when we talk about firing or disciplining employees, we want to make sure we have everything documented. You have to document, you have to protect yourself, and never be afraid to seek counsel, because you don't want to go to court. It's expensive. Even if you win, it's still expensive, because lawyers aren't cheap. It's cheaper to pay for a lawyer to get advice than it is to pay for that lawyer to prepare a court case and sit in court. So, anyway. All right, guys. We talked about last week 3 essential people management skills. Let's just let me just give you a refresher of what we discussed last week. As managers, you need to be concerned about productivity and your employees. That's a fine line. You need to understand human resource management and have a purposeful action for your directives. What we expect, what management expects from workers: produce high quality work on a timely basis, take responsibility seriously, show concern for welfare of the farming operation and other employees, and then right here, represent your business well within the community. What the employees expect from managers: they want to be valued. They want the managers to value their feelings and opinions, provide positive feedback, meet upon agreed terms and conditions of employment, be consistent, be courteous, provide a work environment where they can develop their potential over time. Now, when we think about the components of labor management, we, as managers, we're walking a fine line between meeting our production goals and looking out for the welfare of our employees. If you think about just just something simple, say picking up square bells out of the field. Okay, you got your hay down, you got it baled. It's summertime. It's 90 degrees. It's humid, and there's a thunderstorm off in the distance. It's coming your way, and it's going to hit your hay. How hard do you push your employees to get that hay up, at least get it on the wagons and get it parked in the barn so it doesn't get wet? But yet, you don't want your employees to have heat stroke. Correct? Watch that fine line. We want productivity out of our employees. And productivity comes from 2 things. It comes from the worker's ability. Are they able to do the job? Are they able to do the job proficiently and efficiently? And their motivation. What motivates your employees? And, we all know if we've got a task that we have to do that we hate to do it, we kind of let our shoulders drop and we just shrug through that task, and we're not really motivated to get it done. Correct? Y'all agree or disagree?
Agree.
Agree.
Okay. But, when we're motivated to get that done, we pick up the pace, we hit it with a little different attitude. Or if it's a task that we like doing. So motivation, what motivates you? And you've got to figure that out for your employees. Sometimes it's money. Sometimes it's just a job well done. Sometimes it's just the respect the employees have for you. It's the love of the job. Let me tell you about a boss I had one time. It was raining. I was working on a farm. I was at Tech. It was a summer job. I was up there. And Tom, you probably know this guy, Tim Sutphin, there in Pulaski.
Name doesn't ring a bell, but a lot of things
Kathy,
don't.
right? 4-H extension agent, or she works in extension there at Tech, the director of 4-H.
Oh, okay.
It's her husband.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So this was many years ago. Kathy wasn't in that position. She was just a regular 4-H agent. But uh, I was working for Tim, and it was raining, and just a nasty rainy summer day. And we needed the rain. Don't get me wrong, but he said, Dwayne, good rainy day job for you is go muck out the sheep barn. Go pull down all those lambing jugs, the little 4x4 gates there in the lambing barn that we'd put the lambs in, and clean out all that straw and manure. And it was deep because, you know, new ewe come into lamb, he'd spread some lime on it, throw in some new straw, and then kick her out, do the same thing for the next one. He had a couple, 300 ewes, so it was pretty deep. And it was hot. You're in the barn. It was raining. He said, so go ahead and hook up the manure spreader, back it in the barn, and get the shoveling. And I said, okay. He goes, I'm going to go do some paperwork. And that's one thing farmers hate. You know, you hate to do paperwork. You always try to put it off. At least I do. And so anyway, I'm out there in the lambing barn, had the radio on, shoveling manure, or, fork, had a pitchfork, and I had the jugs down and just cleaning up. And here comes my boss, Tim Sutphin. Comes in with another pitchfork and just starts helping me fork manure. And I said, I thought you were doing paperwork today. He said, Dwayne, you know how bad I hate this job that you're doing? He goes, I despise it. And I started doing my paperwork, and I felt guilty that I sent you out on a job that I hate, that I despise intensely. And, that went a long way for earning my respect. But I know he had never asked me to do something he wouldn't do. He might not like doing it, and he sent me to do it, which I didn't know at the time, but he comes out there for the rest of the day. We shovel manure and empty out the manure spreader. You're talking about earning respect and motivating you. That's a great motivator for me. But everybody's different on what motivates them. So keep in mind, to get the productivity, you're thinking about the ability of the worker to do the job and their motivation. Now, some things that affect productivity out of the workers is the organization itself. How's it structured? You think of some big corporations, and I'm not trying to, I don't know how to say this. I'm just an old country boy, and we have our sayings, and we don't mean anything racist by it. But I don't know how to phrase it any different right now off the top of my head, so please don't take offense. Like when companies get pretty big, they end up with more management positions than they do the actual workers. And that hurts. I'm trying to rephrase how to phrase this a different way. And that hurts productivity. And I think you guys know what I'm talking about, right? Kind of goes back, I guess I'm going to go back to that, but the old saying, there's too many chiefs and not enough Indians. There's not enough people to do the work. It's all management positions, and some people are just after a title and they don't want to do any work. So just the structuring of the organization can affect productivity. The design of the job, or that can affect it. The people you recruit for the job, your selection process. Are you selecting the right people? Are you recruiting the right people to begin with? Are you recruiting people that's able to do the job are you selecting the right people for those jobs? And then another thing is orientation, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But when you bring somebody on board, you know, you need to have pride in your farm or your operation. Uh, and so when you bring somebody on board, let them know the history of it. Let them know what your goals are. Let them know you're proud of that organization and that you're proud of the people that work for you. Introduce them to other people. Try to make them feel at home or feel comfortable. Get them oriented in what's going on and get them feeling comfortable so they can get to work and be productive as soon as possible. Uh, can supervisors affect productivity?
Very much so.
Yeah. If you have a supervisor that's well respected and knows how to motivate their people or motivate his employees, he can get a lot out of them. But if it's a supervisor that abuses his authority uh, and uses wrong type of motivators or motivators that don't work or that can kind of backfire on him, they don't have as much people don't have that respect for those type of supervisors. It's more of a fear type situation, and they're just working, beating in their hours so they have a job. Another thing that can affect productivity is performance appraisals. I know Anthony does this, Aaron probably has performance appraisals every year there at Southern States or twice a year. Keith, I know you've had them. You sit down with one of your supervisors and they tell you, they go over what you did for the year and tell you what you can do better and kind of that dreaded performance review you have every year, right? If that's handled properly, that's a great tool as a manager. I know a lot of times it's a dreaded type situation, or it is for me, and I think it is. It could be, and it can be for other people as well. It all depends on how your supervisors handle that. But it's a great tool. We'll discuss it furthermore in detail in the future. How about that? Is that a motivator?
Just like to make a comment on a performance appraisal, you have to be very careful because sometimes management might have their own agenda in place. They might be looking down to possible layoffs, and so they have to start planning the reasoning why they're laying off or why they might be laying you off as an individual so if it comes to a court case. So you be very, very guarded when you go through the performance appraisal. And sometimes they could be very happy and maybe playing you for the next promotion, and they might be forming that appraisal to support your advancement.
You're right. In both cases, they can be, if management is looking at a layoff, those performance appraisals can come into effect, or for promotions. So, it's a great tool for management. As employees, we're kind of scared of it. It can be a double-edged sword for us.
The best in my career, the best appraisal, it's usually a two-prong. Usually, the management does one on your performance, and you do one on your performance, and you have supporting documentation and any other type of information that supports the statements that you're making, and also to challenge any issues that the management might bring up or something to document. Instead of just sitting there and say yay or nay, you actually submit your issues as it goes part of the completed appraisal evaluation.
Yes, and we'll talk more about that later in the semester, that type of appraisal system. And I think that's a very good one as well. And unfortunately, I've never had that type. It's always been the other type. But we'll discuss more of that in the future. Future. There's a whole chapter devoted to that. Compensation or pay for your job, that's a motivator. Uh, Benefits. What about safety and health concerns? Is that a motivator? Can that affect productivity?
Yes.
Yeah. And we know agriculture is a dangerous job, isn't it? I saw a thing the other day that I can't remember where I saw it. More people get killed. Was it? They were comparing shark bites to people getting hurt by cattle, and more people get hurt by cattle than they do by sharks. Uh, they're a danger. They can be a dangerous animal. So farming, agriculture is a dangerous profession, um, and so we need to keep that in mind for our employees. There's Keith doing bees. I'll guarantee you he's going to get stung this summer. If you got bees, you're probably going to get stung, even with all his protective gear. He may not even be working his bees. He may just be mowing his grass. If there's bees around, or set his hand on something and get stung because he's got because the increase of the bee population. It's going to happen. You're going to, he's going to get stung, and the person he's getting ready to hire is probably going to get stung. And hopefully they don't have any allergies to bees. But it is we've got, that can play a factor into productivity. If it's pretty dangerous, people, they may be kind of leery. And a couple other things that can affect productivity is the development of the organization, or organizational development, and research and evaluation. So, there's a lot of factors that go into productivity, and labor management. And so, it's just not a one simple answer. There's a lot of things involved, from pay, benefits, organizational structure, people you recruit, the motivation of the employees, pay. I mentioned that, but those things I mentioned. There's a lot that go into labor management. It's not simple. And the results that we get, they're influenced by our management practices and decisions. Excuse me. The production of our employees, directly a result. It's influenced greatly by the practices and decisions that we make as management. Motivating the employees, again, it's influenced by management and the decisions that management makes. How about the amount of waste that's produced? Same deal, right? Breakdowns.
I got a quick question.
Okay.
All right, so this might be a little off topic, but it's about kind of the same thing. But I work I'm part-time, so I can only work 29 hours a week by law. And there are some days where other people call out or, might just be sick or something. Well, by law, my boss will not let me work anymore. If I've already done my 29 hours, if she's the only one running the store, then that's what she has to do. She can't call me and say, "Can you come in?" because the company won't pay me because I've already reached my 29 hours that week. And that makes me, as an employee, a little, it doesn't really motivate me any to want to come to work. If she wants to pay me a little, extra to come in to cover somebody's shift, I can't do it.
That's right. And that's a prime example of how decisions of management can affect, those results of the employees. Now, unfortunately, the situation they're in goes back because of the health care deal that was passed, the Affordable Health Care Act, with providing insurance based on the number of hours. And since everything, all that stuff is still kind of cloudy, what's going to happen now with this new administration, I don't know. I know when that was passed and things started coming into play, it changed here as well. Part-time teachers are only allowed to teach a certain number of classes. Part-time employees are only allowed 29 hours a week, period. Used to be set up that the part-time employees, if you work for the state part-time, you could work up to 1,500 hours a year and be considered part-time, and they would not have to pay you to help with provide insurance or any type of benefits.
Well, see, what I heard was you could work up to like 39 hours a week. I mean, right up 39 and a half.
Well,
And
this was for the state. Okay.
yeah.
Private industry, I don't really know what it was. I know it was less than 40 hours.
Yeah, I can jump. I can jump in a little bit here, Dwayne. But first, I want to go back to Aaron. Your point is your manager telling you that it's the law that you can't work more than 35 hours or 29 hours. That is incorrect. That is company policy. The law is if you have anybody working more than 29 hours, they're considered close enough to being a full-time employee. You've got to provide benefits. And Southern States does not want to provide benefits to people like you at the moment. So it's company policy that's trying to circumvent the law. And to go back to what Dwayne was talking about is Microsoft got busted. It was like 10, 15 years ago. They had probably 3/4 of their employees, they were working 35 hours a week. But then they're saying it's not a full 40-hour-a-week job, so they were doing no benefits, no health care for anything, and it was like 75. It was a huge percentage of their employees, and so that's really when Microsoft got busted for that. I mean, just in the eyes of public perception, that's really what ended up causing all of this thing to happen in the first place. Sort of, we consider 40 hours a full-time job, but then okay, if you're working 35, that's close enough. So you've got to take care of people, and then Obamacare's kind of back down to 29. And you can sort of average it out a little bit about, okay, maybe you work 30 hours one week and 28 the next, and over the course of the month you're working 29. But even at that, what you would consider a part-time person versus a full-time person before Obamacare, it still was kind of defined by the company, and like I say, Microsoft was defining it at 35.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. I know that the Obamacare changed everything around, and that is company policy, just so that they, like he said, to circumvent the law. But it makes it hard on everybody involved. You know, it makes it hard on your manager trying to do everything by herself because you're out of hours for the week, uh, and the other person's sick or whatever came up. So you know that's definitely going to impact the productivity of that store and the motivation of their employees.
Well, yeah, it does kind of aggravate me, just not, I don't know. Sometimes you feel, you're an employee, but sometimes just because you're part-time, you don't feel like you're 100% with everybody else.
Exactly. And
When they're only there one more day a week than you are.
yeah, it's their practices influence production. Uh, but I know what you mean there. It's it's frustrating. Um, and I know from what you told me, you want to get there full time. So that's just one of those things. Right at this point, until you get full time or something better comes along.
Well, I mean, it works good for me now because I'm in school, and
It
she
does.
works with my. So I mean, I'm not complaining at all, but just on certain days when I don't have school, like when I get out of school in May, it'd be nice to be able to work full time.
Exactly. And just so you know, Southern states do offer internships.
Hmm.
Whether they're going to college students, whether your part-time employment can affect you getting that internship or not, I don't know, but that may be something you could look into
Yeah, I'm not
this summer.
stuck to staying at where I'm at now. I'd rather not work there. I'd rather move on to a different location, but
Well, one thing about that organization, they've got stores all over the southeast.
yeah, so I can move pretty much anywhere.
Right. Uh, but anyway, getting back to this, and thanks for your input on that. It's a good, good deal. Uh, but getting back, the results that we get from our employees, they are influenced drastically by management practices and their decisions. Uh, Production, motivation, waste, breakdowns, satisfaction, and because of the company policies there with Aaron, you know, his motivation and satisfaction aren't there for him right now because of that, the way that is sometimes. Uh, and then the production of the store hurts. Uh, Grievances, litigation, illness, and injury are a couple others. Grievances are, complaints against the company. Uh, so it's, management is important, guys, and understanding human nature. Um, and then we think about what obstacles that we face as managers uh, and employers. Uh, when we're trying to do something or motivate our employees, what, one of the obstacles we face is an instant, or, to motivate them is what's the payoff for the employee? Is it, an insufficient payoff? Is it going to pay off for the company? Is it going to pay off for the employee? Uh, is it worth the effort? And, that's one thing where communication comes in. Everybody needs to be on the same page and they need to understand your goals so that they understand, you know, why we're doing this and they all buy in on it. And and they see the, the payoff, hopefully, is going to be worth that effort. Uh, you know, throughout my career, and I'm sure everybody else's, we've all seen incidents like that. They've come up, the company or your employers wanted you to do something. You're thinking, really? What's the benefit of this thing? What's the benefit of this? What's the payoff for it? In the long run, it may, we didn't see the big picture. We were questioning it. And what's their likelihood to be successful with it? Uh, we all want success, and success breeds success. Uh, and if it looks like it's not going to be successful, we're not really going to put in an effort. So, that's another obstacle we have to deal with. A couple other ones, especially with employees, of getting them to do stuff, is lack of self-esteem or self-confidence. You know, when it comes to, and I'll use myself as an example, with tractor implements, okay? Now, the ones I'm used to running, I'm all right with. When I was down there in Wilmington and I was having to run, operate really big tractors compared to what I was used to, and using these implements that probably cost us as much as a tractor, man, my self-confidence was kind of like, I don't know if I could, I'm scared I'm going to tear up something, or have a breakdown on this implement that costs 50 grand. Or, I had a self-esteem problem when it came with operating some of that. And I was leery. And so it probably hurt my production because I was extra cautious. And then you also have the reverse on that with people think they can do everything and they don't know jack. And they go and they can tear up an iron anvil, because they're just so full of self-esteem. But that's an obstacle that we face, and lack of focus. How do you keep your employees focused on the task at hand instead of running off over here, running off over there? Be like a butterfly and go from flower to flower instead of just staking at one task and getting it completed before going to another one. And then another one, and I think we're all guilty of, is just lack of planning it out and executing that plan. And if that plan goes wrong, we come in, evaluate it, and we correct it and get back on track, or change our plan a little bit to make it work. Sometimes we see in some companies, something's not working. They just continue to trudge right ahead, and it still doesn't work. So, we got to plan out what we need to get done and be willing to change or make adjustments and evaluate during that process to make corrections and to keep it.
Could I add one more thing on our obstacles? I think communications. I think you need to have good up and down communications. I've been in jobs where doing something and you ask why they're doing it this way, and you get the response, that's the way it's always been done, and you've got suggestion ideas, and people look at you like you don't know what you're talking about, and people don't want to, your manager doesn't want to hear that because that makes him look bad. And then you need to know what's coming down from management. What are their goals? What are their projections? What does the future look like? So it kind of gives you a little bit of job security.
I agree with you. And why the author of the book didn't put that in there in obstacles is beyond me. But I do agree with you on that.
Yeah, just as an example, just think we've all had teachers through the years that didn't tell us what they expected us to do on our assignments. And how in the world can you write a paper or do a project if you haven't been given instructions? And your employees feel the exact same way. And I take that to heart when I'm coming up with instructions on projects and stuff. I need to do better.
Yeah, me too. And that's one reason I kind of, for this list, for these assignments here in this HR class, I've given you that grading rubric. So you know exactly how I'm going to grade it and exactly what I'm looking for. So, hopefully that helps you a little bit. But yeah, communication is a big one. And I think that's, I've worked, and I'm not picking on the college, okay? I've worked in various state jobs with the Virginia Employment Commission, Virginia Cooperative Extension, worked for here, and and in the private, and I've worked for the federal government as well. And man, it's a big deal. Now I haven't in private industry. The private industry I've always worked at, it's always been on farms, and so one thing I can say on the farms and the horse training jobs, communication was pretty good, other than one job. The one training job I had, communication went very well. But the other jobs, the communication was good. They were a small company or, a farm. And, and we always worked directly with the boss, the owner, or the manager. And so, we had real good communication of what was going on and what was expected and the goals. But with the state and the federal deal, it's not there. And it leaves me scratching my head a lot, why? Or, why don't they just tell us what they're thinking here or what the goal is? It's different. I don't know if private industries are the same way or not, but my time with the federal government and especially with cooperative extension, communication wasn't really there. They left you hanging, and stuff. It just was it. I don't know. But communication, guys, it can't be you can't underrate it. So, the other thing, you know, with people management that we deal with, we're having to work with our employees, and again, I want to stress work with them. They're not working for us. You get along better with that attitude. When you're coming up, trying to select the right employee for the job, how do you do that? You've got your first assignment that's due this weekend. Some of you guys have done it. Of selecting an employee, and we're going to go throughout the semester of selecting an employee with these assignments. So the first thing we got to do is decide what we need. Do we need, if we're looking at a farm position job, what do we need that person to do? And what's their responsibilities? What's going to be their duties? And we need to get specific. We need to write it down, write a job description, figure out whether or not we really need them, figure out what they're going to do, what are their responsibilities. And we need to figure out what's the most important thing, what are they going to spend most of their time doing? And we need, put that at the front of the list because that's what they're going to be doing the most of. And then we got to figure out how we're going to recruit these people. Where are we going to look? We're just going to hire the first person comes knocking on our door looking for a job? Are we going to advertise? Are we going to advertise locally or regionally, throughout the state? And that depends on the job you've got. If you're looking to hire somebody to manage your dairy farm, you may be looking doing a national job search throughout the nation to find that best candidate. If you're looking, Keith's case, he just may be looking somebody part-time, maybe looking, centering it more toward a high school kid for a summer job. So, it varies from job to job of what you're doing of your recruitment strategy. But you want to try to target your target audience. You don't want to go to the computer factory and put up a job posting on their board for a farm laborer. You're not going to get anybody there. But you probably may be able to find somebody if you did it at Southern States. So it's you got to hit the right targets, and you want to try to get good people. And then you got to come up with the selection process. What tools are you going to use to select your employee? Okay, you've got a job description wrote, you got it advertised, you got people applying for this job or interested in this job. What's your next step? Are you going to require them to send in resumes? Are you going to require them to do a job application? Are you going to set up a practical exam or a written exam? Are you going to do interviews? Are you going to check references? The more things that we use in the selection process, the better it's going to increase our chances of finding that right person for us. And the thing you need to think of as well, especially if it's a small deal, like on a farm, it's just not going to be their capabilities. You got to keep in mind their personality. Is it going to be somebody you can work with? Is somebody going to be able to take instructions? So is it somebody you're going to be able to trust? Because if it's farms like I worked on before, and you know where all the tractor keys are, you know where all the keys are to the four-wheelers or the gators. You know where the key is to the gas pump and the diesel tanks. So you got to be able to trust them. So are you going to require a criminal record? Or a background check, you got to find somebody you can work with. If it's a small operation, you're going to be out there right beside the person you hire working with them. Jasmine's going to be sitting there clipping dogs and washing dogs with somebody all day long and trimming dog nails. She's got to trust them that they can hold them so she doesn't get bit. Or if she has to run out and run errands, she's going to have to trust them that they're not going to, that they can sit there and get a dog washed and can handle that dog and do a good job and not rip her off, empty out the cash register and take off. So you're going to have to get along with them. So these different selection tools you use is going to help you assess their personality as well as their capabilities. And when you do interview questions, you need to come up with questions that reflect their personality and the way they think. And the book talks about how you can sequence the selection so that you know, you go, like, maybe you check out all the resumes and bring in about 5 people and then let them do a practical test or a written test. Uh, then you may bring back 3 of those for an interview. You let each sequence be a hurdle that they have to pass to come back for the next process. So, you know, and be realistic on what they're going to do. Let them know. You know, hey, your typical day is going to consist of, you know, in the wintertime, you're going to come in, check the fluids in the tractor, go out there and start feeding cattle. Make sure all the cattle are fed. And we're going to go from there. You know, if a fence is down, then we're going to go back and fix that fence up or whatever we, you know, or work on, or do another task the rest of the day, whatever, you know, we got to do. So be realistic with your potential employees of what they're going to be doing on a day-to-day basis. So you want to exchange information with your applicants. Like I like the idea of doing tests, you know, whether it's a practical or written or both, depending on the situation. Your interviews, it's a way for them to get them to talk and tell you about themselves. And you're going to check their references. So, you know, you need to exchange information with them and try to figure out their personality and their skills, because that's what's going to be based on who you hire. We're out of time, guys. Do y'all have any questions or comments?
I think we're good.
Okay, Aaron and Keith, I sure appreciate y'all's participation in what y'all brought up today and the questions. Tom, thank you for bailing me out with some.
No problem. That's why I'm here.
They're relevant, and it's something we can all learn from. And I appreciate your participation. Jasmine, I appreciate you being here. And I'm not picking on you because you didn't ask any questions. The poor girl gets in the hot seat enough on other classes because one of my students, the other students are online, and one of them is tied up with work-related deals, so she gets picked on pretty heavily in the Monday, Wednesday classes. Probably just enjoying just sitting there not being picked on today and having to speak. So, you guys have any questions on anything, don't be afraid to call me. Your assignments or whatever, I'll be happy to help you out with anything.
I got one quick question for you.
Okay.
I'm also in your Ag 242 class.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And I'm online. I'd rather be in the seated class, but I have to work. But the rations, are we going to do that tomorrow?
Yes, sir.
Is that going to be? Is it okay?
I'm going to go over on
Is
the
that-
rations.
Okay. All right. Just
One thing that will help you with that, Aaron, is read.
because I'm a little confused on that class a little bit.
Okay. What can I help? We're going to get cut off here in about 2 minutes.
Okay.
So
Well,
But what can I help you with, real quick, to clear
I
up?
just want to make sure I'm on. I just want to make sure I'm on task with everybody because I know we got a test coming up, and I don't want to,
Right.
you know, be
We do
be
have a test
behind.
here in a couple of weeks, next week. I gotta look at the syllabus. Now, one thing I do need you to do, you know, you
Mhm.
understand the project that we're working on throughout the semester.
Mhm.
You're gonna have to write a management plan and incorporate some economics in there for animal enterprise. So if you could
Okay.
tell me send me an email what you're going to do your animal enterprise on. I
Mhm.
do need that.
Okay. Well,
As for ration
I'll get you an email
boundaries,
sent.
okay. In Blackboard, there is, uh, I can't remember which week it's under, but there is a folder there. It's either in week 1 or week 2, uh,
Okay.
called the Pearson Square. Read it and work through that problem. That's what we're going to do tomorrow. And it's balancing the ration for some steers using soybean meal, corn, and hay.
Okay. All right.
And,
Thank you.
and I'll work through that ration. I'll work through that tomorrow. Read through it and work through that problem before you listen to the.
All right. Yeah, and then tomorrow evening I'll watch a video.
Yeah, but it won't take you too long to read that problem.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, and let me know what you want to do your enterprise on.
Okay. I will.
Okay, but call me if you
All
have
right.
any questions. Okay.
All right. Thank you. I'll see you Thursday.
Okay. Y'all have a good day.
All right. You too.